Hi guys, I am Engineer Pacturanan, and this time ang pag-uusapan natin ngayon is the bisection method. So actually, this is the first method ng pag-obtain natin ng roots ng mga nonlinear equation. So sige, i-define natin to. Ang bisection method is one of the closed or bracketing method in solving the roots of the polynomial. This method is used to determine the roots between the interval xl, lower value of x, and xu, which is the upper value of x, by dividing the interval into two another equal interval. So yung tawag doon is bisecting. So halimbawa, yung interval nyo, initial na interval is 1 and 3. So, kukunin mo yung average ng 1 and 3, which is 2. Diba? Imagine niyo, meron tayong initial x 1, initial x 3. Pag dinivide mo yung dalawang yon, magiging 2 or pag in-average mo. So, may bago tayong interval, 1 and 2, tapos 2 and 3. Okay? So, its graphical representation, ganito nga yun. May lower, may upper, and may middle tayo. Diba? Lower, middle, and upper. So, the graphical representation shown in figure 1.1 illustrates this root finding technique. Assume that the original interval is yun na nga, xl, xu. The interval will be divided into two equal spans by placing the middle point xm. So it is evident that xm nga is equal to the average of xl and xu since it is the midpoint of the span. Ulitin ko, yung xm is literal na average. Kaya nga to tinawag na bisection kasi hahatiin mo literally into two equal intervals. After bisecting, two new intervals are present, XL and XM, tapos XM and XU. So, yung ng interval is XL, XM. Yung sunod na interval is XM, XU. However, only one of these two contains the root. So, sa figure natin, halata naman class na yung root, which is itong x, ay nasa gitna nitong dalawa, di ba? However, yun na nga, parang from this span na napakahaba, pinaliit nyo. So, sa bisection method, paliliitin nyo yung span natin. So, to choose the span that contains the root, determination of the values or the numerical sign of fx of L, yung fx of m, and fx of u is necessary. If the numerical sign of fx of L and fx of m are opposite, then the roots is between these two. However, if the numerical sign between fx of m and fx of u are opposite nga, then the root is between x of m and x of u. Based on the figure 1.1, x sub L or f of x sub L is negative, while f of x sub n and f of x sub u are both positive. It means na yung root is between x sub L and x sub m as obviously shown in figure 1.1. So the process will be repeated to the new interval until it is small enough to accept the roots of the approximate value. So explain ko lang yung binasa ko going back to the previous slide. So ito na nga, may x sub L na tayo, may x sub n and x sub u. Hinanap ko yung function ng x sub L, function ng x sub m, and function ng x sub u. Ang next na kailangan natin dito guys is hanapin mo yung value nila or even yung sign lang. From this figure, itong f of x sub L is negative, di ba? Kasi nasa baba siya ni x-axis. Pero yung f of x sub m and yung f of x sub u, parehas sila positive, okay? And since yun na nga, wait lang since parehas sila positive, according to the bisection method, kung alin daw yung may opposite sign, nandoon yung root. So, itong x sub L saka x sub m, negative to positive, it means nasa gitna nitong dalawa yung root as obviously shown nga. Pero since yung x sub m and x sub u ay parehas positive, it means na yung root ay wala sa gitna nila. So I hope nakukuha niyo yung point ko Unang step, inanap ko yung x sub L, x sub m, x sub u. and yung values ng mga function. Kung saan nag-separate or nag-change of sign, ito nga siya, change of sign nga ang ginawa natin. So, nandun yung root. Okay? So, after nito, meron ka ng bagong interval. Hahatiin mo ulit yon. Meron kang bagong x sub L, x sub M, and x sub U, and do the same. So, the process is done repeatedly until you reach the certain accuracy that you desire. Okay? So, I hope that is clear. So, to formalize this lesson, these are the step-by-step procedure to perform the bisection method. So, yung una, kailangan malaman muna natin yung value ng middle point between x sub L and x sub U. So, which is, take the average of the two. Yun na yung discussion natin. Just take the average of the two. Yung step 2 is isosolve natin yung value ng f of x sub L, f of x sub M, and f of x sub U. So, yan yung next step. For the next step, to choose the new interval for the next iteration, ito yung gagawin natin. If yung fx sub L and f sub M are opposite in sign, so based nga doon sa example natin, kung ito ay opposite in sign, the new interval will be x sub L, x sub M. It means that x sub L retains the lower limit but x sub M will be the new upper limit of the interval. So the opposite is true if f of x sub M and f of x sub U are opposite in sign. So the new interval will be x sub M, x sub U. It means that x sub M will be the new lower limit but x sub U retains as the upper limit of the interval. Mas may intindihan nyo to guys kapag may example na tayo later on. Okay? And last step is of course to repeat the first 3 steps of the new interval until it becomes relatively small and the approximate value of the root can be accepted. Okay? So, the tabular presentation of the results of iteration is helpful. So, ipapakita ko sa inyo later on yung tabular presentation niya. The root of the function will be average of the last produced interval. Okay? So, alam ko medyo nakakalito yung steps, pero actually madali lang naman tong bisection method. So subukan natin sagutan itong unang example using this method. So I think ready na tayo na mag-solve. So example, determine the root of 3x to the 4th plus 7x cubed minus 15x squared plus 5x equals 17 between the interval 0 to 2. Use the bisection method and perform 7 iterations. Okay? So, hahanapin natin yung value ng x using the bisection method and 7 beses daw natin gagawin yon. So, makinig ng mabuti dahil mas madali itong intindihin kapag may example. So, this is the solution. Ngayon, ang given function is f of x equals 3x to the 4th plus 7x cubed minus 15x squared plus 5x minus 17. Actually, ang gagawin nyo lang, balikan natin dito, parang itong 17 nilipat ko lang sa kabila para yung right side ay maging 0. So, ganun lang naman yung method natin para mahanap nyo yung f of x. Kasi baka yung iba malito, no? Bakit biglang nagkaroon ng negative? Ulitin ko, ang ginawa ko, itong 17 nilipat ko lang sa kaliwa. Okay? So, meron na tayong function na f of x. Now, I think ready na tayo sa first iteration. So, yung initial span natin, ito yung initial span natin, no, is 0 saka 2. So, according to the step 1, hahanapin natin yung average, which is 0 plus 2 over 2 is equal to 1. Okay? So, ganun yung gagawin nyo. 0 plus 2 over 2 is equal to 1. The next step, hanapin nyo yung f of x sub L, which is yung f of 0. So, ito, ang gagawin mo lang, itong 0, isasubstitute nyo lang dito sa function natin. 3, 0 to the 4th, plus 7, 0 cube, minus 15 times 0 squared, plus 5 times 0, minus 17. So, that is equal to negative 17. Okay? So, kasi yung x sub L natin ay 0, The same thing ang gagawin nyo, class, doon sa x sub M, which is yung x sub M natin is 1. So, yun lang. Substitute nyo lang siya. 3, 1 to the 4th, plus 7, 1 cube, so on so forth. I believe alam nyo na yung gagawin dyan. So, negative 17 din ulit siya. And yung f of x sub u, so that is f of 2. So, f of 2 na siya. The same process is substitute nyo yung x is equal to 2. So, that is equal to 37. Okay? So, ayan. Nahanap na natin yung fx sub L, fx sub M, and fx sub U. So, ang rule natin, sabi nga natin, kung alin dito ang nag-change of sign, yun na yung bagong interval. So, therefore, since f of 1 and f of 2 are opposite in sign, the new interval is 1 and 2. Kasi diba, yung f of 1 mo is negative 17, yung f of 2 mo is positive 37. So, opposite sign, yun na yung bagong interval. Yun lang yung tandaan nyo, Meron ka ng f of x sub L, f of x sub M, f of x sub U. Kung alin ang opposite sign, automatic yun na ang new interval. I hope that is clear. But as I said, having a tabular solution is very helpful, diba? Kapag meron tayong tabular solution, ito siya. For the first iteration, yung x sub L is 0, x sub M is 1, x sub 2, U is U. Tapos, pinakompute ko na sa inyo. Ito, nakompute na natin siya. Ang gagawin nyo lang naman, kung saan nag-opposite ng sign, yun na yung tamang sagot. Sabi natin, between negative 17 and 37, opposite sign, therefore 1, 2. Okay? So, ito na yung ating unang iteration. Perform the same process for the next iteration. So, this time, for the second iteration, yung bagong interval natin, class, is 1 and 2. Okay? So, kung ano yung naging result ng first iteration, yun na yung gagamitin natin for the second iteration. So, I hope that is clear. Same process. Hanapin nyo ulit yung x sub M, which is between 1 and 2. So, 1 plus 2 over 2 equals 1.5. Hindi na ako dito masyadong magpapa-evaluate. Hanapin nyo na lang siya. F of x sub L is f of 1, which is negative 17. F of x sub M, which is f of 1.5, which is negative 4.438, and f of x sub U, which is f of 2, which is equal to 37. Again, ang rule natin is kung saan nag-opposite yung sign, nag-shift of sign, automatic, yun na yung bagong interval, yun yung kailangan yung tandaan. Yung f of 1 is still a negative number. Yung f of 1.5 is still a negative number. Yung f of 2 nyo is now a positive number. Take note of the rule. Kung saan nag-shift ng sign or nag-iba ng sign, since ito, negative, tapos ito, positive, so ano ina-expect nyong bagong interval? Di ba dapat, ang maging bagong interval ay yung 1.5 and 2? Kasi from negative to positive. So basta yun lang dapat ang nasa isip nyo, kung saan magbago ng sign. Another tabular solution, ito lang siya. 1, 1.52, f of x sub L, f of x sub N, f of x sub U. And since nga ito, mas magandang tingnan kasi diba, negative ito, biglang positive. So, 1.5 to 2. So, diba, mas maganda nga kapag may tabular presentation ng solution kasi mas madali siyang maintindihan. Okay? Lastly, for the third iteration, using the newly obtained na 1.5 and 2, again, ulit-ulit, kaya nga dito, ang boring ng bisection method kasi ayan, x sub M ulit, 1.5 plus 2 over 2 equals 1.75. Tapos, hanapin mo ulit yung tatlo. F of x sub L is equal to f of 1.5, which is ayan, negative 4.438. F of x sub M, which is f of 1.75, is 11.465. And f of x sub U is equal to f of 2 equals 37. Tandaan ang goal, kung saan nag-shift of sign, automatic yun na yung next interval. Ito na siya, negative to positive. So, since negative to positive siya, ang ibig sabihin nito, yung bagong interval na natin ay 1.5 and 1.75. So, diba? Ganun lang siya kadali. So, tabular presentation, ito ulit siya. Ito yung ating tabular presentation for the third iteration. Hindi ko na ipapakita yung pang-apat hanggang pang-pito kasi maboboring ka lang dahil paulit-ulit lang naman ang process nito. Basta ang tandaan nyo, for the 4th to 7th iteration, ito na yung magiging result natin. Sa 4th iteration, ang magiging new interval is 1.5 and 1.625. Sa 5th iteration, 1.5625, 1.625. Okay, so I hope nagagets nyo. Sa 6th iteration, 1.5625, 1.59375, and sa last iteration, 1.57813 and 1.59375. Ulitin ko, mas maganda pa rin talaga na may tabular presentation kayo. So, ito na yung 4th iteration. I think hindi ko na siya i-discuss isa-isa kasi the concept is just the same lang naman nung una. The 5th iteration, ganun din the 6th and the 7th iteration. Okay? So, ayan. Natapos na natin yung 7th iteration. And according dito, the last interval is this one. So, kung titingnan nyo, I want to emphasize this one. From this one na masyadong malaki, di ba yung initial natin is 0 to, malaki pa yung span na yon. For every iteration, paliit pa lang siya ng paliit, 'di ba? Lumiliit lang ng lumiliit yung span. And that is the whole concept of bisection method. Kapag pinagpatuloy nyo pa to, liliit yan ng liliit until ma-reach na yung root. Nakukuha nyo? Paliit lang ng paliit ang span natin. Gayunman, I think 7 iterations is enough naman na. So, tututok tayo dito sa last interval na nakuha natin. Okay? So, this is the last interval that we got. Ang gagawin nyo lang, the value of x is i-average mo lang class yung interval na yun. Ulitin ko, i-average mo lang yung interval. So, 1.57813 plus 1.59375 over 2. So, ito na yung root natin, 1.58594. So, therefore, meron na tayong root ng function natin. And that is between 0 and 2. Gusto ko lang ditong i-point out na the obtained value of the root is the nearest hundredths after 7th iteration. Kung gagamit ka kasi ng mga high-powered calculator or kung gagawin mo to accurately, ako kasi nag-e-excel ako, pero hindi na natin yun may scope kasi complicated din yun. Kung gagamitin mo to ng exact approach o yung pinaka-eksakto nito, ang sagot niyan is 1.58416. Ulitin ko, ang tamang sagot dyan is 1.58416. Kung babalikan nyo, remember na ang method natin is an approximation lang Kung babalikan nyo, wait lang. Ito yung root, 1.58594. Ang correct answer is 1.58416. Okay na. At least na-approximate natin. Okay? So, ang goal natin, as accurate as possible, makuha natin yung root. Pero syempre, mahirap yun kasi maraming iterations ang kailangan. Gayunman, okay na yun. Okay na tong sagot natin. Kasi at least, malapit siya dito. Kaya lang, however nga, the approximate value may be unacceptable for some scientists and engineer because of the notable error. Thus, further iterations are needed. Minsan kasi, ang mga engineers and scientists gusto nila ng accurate para at least wala nang rooms for error. So, yun nga, kung ikaw ay nasa field of engineering and the sciences, mas maganda kung further iterations ang i-perform mo. Pero ngayon, at least na-illustrate natin kung paano yung manual na approach. So, thank you so much for listening in this lecture video. I hope naintindihan nyo kung anong ibig sabihin ng bisection method. So, bye-bye!